Hello, everybody. The case study I chose is the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in New York, 1911. I chose this case study because of all the implications of this fire, socioeconomic, fire safety codes, and so on. Stage 1 of the disaster states that you are the mayor of a large metropolitan city. Code enforcement excuse me, reports that a clothing manufacturer has been cited for several fire and safety violations. The plant should be informed that unless it complies with city codes at once, it will be shut down and fined on a weekly basis until compliance has been achieved. Code enforcement officers, city attorneys, and police officers are available to enforce city codes. Stage 2 of the disaster states that you, as in the mayor, have been informed that a fire has broken out at the clothing factory and that over 500 workers are trapped in the building. First responders must be deployed to the scene to safely evacuate the workers and to prevent the fire from spreading to surrounding buildings / to save the factory. A large amount of fire and EMS personnel are needed to put out the fire in and evacuate this large factory, plus treat any injured workers. Stage 3 of the disaster states that you have been informed that a fire escape has collapsed as workers were trying to flee from the fire. Is there a backup plan to evacuate workers, and what resources do you have to accomplish it? Firefighters will have to create another means of egress, such as ladders, since no helicopters available, obviously at that time in history. As a large number of workers is trapped in the building, more firefighters and medical personnel are needed. Next of kin of workers killed or injured need to be contacted. Fire investigators and police have to be dispatched once the fire is extinguished. The key issues raised in this case study are that it is very important to have building codes and to enforce them. If codes had been enforced, the company would have been forced to comply, or otherwise the city could have closed down the factory for non-compliance. Having and enforcing building codes limits liability of the government and helps prevent tragedy from occurring in the first place. Failure to enforce codes was the single biggest failure, as this resulted in an ineffective evacuation due to lack of viable escape routes for workers. The toll of this was the death of 146 workers from a fire that lasted 30 minutes. And then, in regards to critique, this is an interesting case study that emphasizes the importance of building codes and their enforcement. What the case study failed to mention was the complicity of the city. Codes were in place that required the construction of a third staircase. However, city officials allowed a single, flimsy, and poorly anchored exterior fire escape to be built instead. 20 workers fell to their deaths when it collapsed. Flames prevented workers from using the Green Street stairway, and doors to the Washington Place stairway were locked. It would also have been worth mentioning under key issues that terribly unsafe working conditions still exist. Often this is still made possible because workers in modern-day sweatshops are undocumented immigrants and those in desperate need of employment. For example, 98% of garment factories in LA have workplace health and safety problems serious enough to lead to severe injuries or death. And this is nowadays. While the owners of the Triangle Shirtwaist factory lost a civil suit in 1913, they never were found guilty in the criminal suit. They had to pay $75 for deceased victim in compensation. However, their insurance paid them $60,000 more than reported losses, or about $400 per casualty. Later that same year, one of the owners was once again arrested for locking the door in his factory during work hours. I learned, and oh yeah, by the way, he was fined $25 for that. What a slap on the wrist, huh? What I learned from this case study was that other than locked doors, lack of an extra stairway, and poorly constructed fire escape, there were other factors that contributed to the large loss of life. Workspaces were cluttered. The long wooden tables with the sewing machines and back-to-back chairs became obstacles. There were baskets full of months' worth of scraps. The floors were oily, which spread the fire quickly. There were no sprinklers. Boxes crowded the exit. The water pressure was insufficient, and the fire department's ladders only reached the 6th floor. While there's much more advanced firefighting equipment and extinguishing systems available, greed still is causing workers to be injured or killed. A terrible tragedy happened not quite 2 years ago in Dhaka, Bangladesh. 112 workers died and 200 were injured under almost identical circumstances. On the plus side, after the Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire, new laws and codes were put in place to try and protect workers. But as we can see by what I was telling you about the garment factories in LA, that still doesn't necessarily seem to mean anything. I did also include a few links. I have some more information on all the details. You can actually also find some pictures of layout of the 9th floor, and also accounts of people who survived the tragedy, as well as firefighters that told about the firefighting efforts and all that they saw. Either way, I thought that was kind of interesting. Thought maybe you might be interested as well.